Good afternoon. It's Michael, and I am once again here in a remote location waiting for my wife Robin to join me. I know last week, if you were tuned in to the Wednesday Wellness Talk at Slow Medicine, you might have noticed that I was having some technical difficulties getting her hooked online. I'm hoping that we figured this out this week, and we will continue our conversation on life's purpose. The show is intended to entertain you, if nothing else, to get you thinking about your life and ways in which you might reevaluate, reframe, reprogram, reprocess so that you're feeling better during your life, starting from today. That the ideas that are presented are somehow practical enough that get you into the mode of application. And once that's clearer to you and your path is clearer, that's to me always a way to relieve some of the anxiety and the strain. And that has immediate benefits, even if the journey still continues to be long. So it's my pleasure to see you again here on a Wednesday. And it's now the end of the month of September. And we're getting definitely into the fall season, where I am located now about 100 miles north of Sunraven, which is Westchester County, New York, but I'm in the beautiful mountain area called the Catskills in central New York. The color changes of the autumn season here are just spectacular. It was raining this morning, but the sky has basically just opened up with light and revealing all these incredible colors and contrasts, which is absolutely beautiful. So I hope the day for around you is similarly beautiful. In fact, it may be a stretch, but to me, my thought is every moment of life can be beautiful if we seek out the beauty. So I am going to try to figure out still how to include Robin. And Robin, if you are listening, you need to somehow send a request to me to join, and I will accept that request. So if you can do that, that would be great. And I'll just give it a minute to see if she doesn't get on board. I see a couple of people are already signed in. And again, Robin, if you're one of them, send me a request. So if you also have a potential question for us, you can send them to us in the form of the chat. So last week I talked about life's purpose, and the best way to think about life's purpose is, what are you doing with your life? You're grateful you're alive, you're trying very hard to stay healthy and well, and beyond the achievement of staying healthy and well, the question is, so what are you going to do with your life? And so what is the purpose of your life when you're as well as possible, even before then, when you're to life, what's the point of it all? Not just to get well and to be there's Robin. Robin, let me just finish my sentence. Not just to be well and survive or deal with an ailment, but to, Robin, there's a lot of background noise where you are.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
Okay. So is to consider, when I am well, or even when I'm in the process of being well, what is meaningful? What will help fulfill me? Why does my health matter? What am I going to do with my life? Potentially, who am I going to serve? So I talked about that last week, but then Robin, of course, wasn't here last week. And she looked at the video with me doing a monologue for 15 minutes. And she said, Michael, I would have also added something about the psychology of life's purpose. So Robin, I want to turn that over to you and to, well, I think she's gone. Robin, you may need to join again. The psychology of life's purpose. And I'm not sure what she meant by that, quite honestly. But I imagine sort of what goes on in the mind or the emotions, but let's, try to bring her back on and see if she could add something of more substance to my question.
Great. Okay, I'm sorry about the background noise. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, do you have headphones? That would be much better.
Yeah, they're not handy. Let me try to just talk. Is it music in the background?
There's music and other types of noises, yeah.
It's interesting because it's very quiet here. So I could hear you really well. So let me, what would you like me to do? Do you want me to try to get my headphones?
You're coming across as very loud in volume and with a lot of streaming noise that must be picking up from your microphone.
Okay.
That's better.
All right.
Further back is better. Don't stay so close to the computer, might be better. Go ahead, Robin. We were talking about, you were going to add something about the psychology of life's purpose.
Okay, thank you. And what I wanted to share, what prevents us from our life's purpose or just being on purpose. I think it's really, really important. Many of us could say to ourselves, well, I'd love to be a dancer, or I would have loved to have danced when I was younger. And I always like to think about, what gets in the way. So we spoke last show, we spoke about the stories we tell ourselves. And so a lot of us need to be curious and have, inquire inside and ask ourselves these questions. What prevents me from pursuing a hobby, something that, resonates with our heart? So one of the emotions that I see with my clients and what I have studied and learned is that fear, the emotion fear, would potentially stop us in our tracks. So the psychology behind that, thinking about when we were younger, as if we didn't have a supportive environment or support and encouragement to be curious, or someone else seeing, wow, it looks like, I'm thinking of my grandson. He loves wheels. And so my brother had a little Halloween get together, pumpkin picking last week. And just as I was getting ready to join us, I saw the video of little Mason, who was embarking on getting on this little tractor that had these wheels. And what I recall is when I first got there, he was being very, very cautious. And I was thinking about it for our show today. It's like, wow, like that early on, an assessment of, am I safe? Am I secure? And anyway, to get to the end of the journey story, I just saw him on the tractor after I had left. And I got on the tractor and pretended I was driving. I didn't push him like our parents might have maybe plopped us on the tractor. We were all really intuitive not to push him before he was ready. So we're building that secure foundation. So the fear factor, what prevents us really, and what is underneath the fear of rejection, the primitive fear of not surviving, fear of falling down, which I wanted to talk about, because a lot of us were taught that we needed to be successful the first time, and if we did fall, we might go into that was a failure, and somebody else's voice might say, oh, you're not good at that. So we want to start there. I'll take a pause and let you ask a question or two, or does it make sense about the fear factor?
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing. So when I was talking about life purpose last week, the key was to recognize that beyond, let's say, the achievements we see for ourselves in life on concrete levels, like getting on a tractor or being a dancer, which you mentioned, there was something beyond those that was really important for us to understand about our own potential. And those things to me are what we do in the physical world. Maybe we get attention, maybe it helps build our security. And what you're saying, I think, is really important. It's really so important for us to have a sense of security for us to go any further. And I think then it applies. If you imagine, I'm not just about being a dancer, but I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be an inspiration to other people. I'm going to support the lives of other people. I have to have a certain amount of self-confidence and certain understanding of self, appreciation for self, even when I have had a history of failure, even when not everything does work out, but I have to stay on track, and fear could hold me back. So you're pointing to something, fear being really essential.
Yeah. Well, fear of rejection. So to add to what you're saying, as primitive, like animals, we're really about survival. However, we are much more sophisticated. So we do assess those things naturally. Our autonomic system, we are designed to survive. Now, what we're talking about in thinking about our purpose, we're thinking we want to bring in a little more of thriving. So I wanted to just share today for the audience about what leaks in and the mindset and how we can overcome. And first step is to notice, wow, I'm fearful, and maybe even go into what's the story we make up about this. Generally speaking, from psychology, and as I work with many, many people and families, it's usually somebody else's voice or some influence from the world, whether they were in a war and got wounded. Generally speaking, where we protect and hold back is where we have actually had some kind of a wound. Now, I just want to share one other thing. The importance of falling is so part of the process of being on our purpose. Because many of us, if we think, oh, I'm not going to be good at it, or we have this judging internal voice of judgment, that's one thing that can keep us stuck. What I want to share about helping us through this, something you were touched on it in your last conversation, is moving beyond, the psyche of the human being and moving into our spirit. And when we become aligned with spiritual practices, some of us can gather some strength from maybe a higher power or God or something that goes far beyond the human condition to get in touch with, really allowing ourselves permission is also very important to start exploring about what we would like to pursue. And it's a practice. And some of the practice is recognizing how we speak to ourselves and imagining when we speak to someone else, we generally stay more positive and with encouragement. So this just brings us to a psychological point that we actually do need to be recognized by outside energies, whether it's environments, spiritual beliefs, or another human being giving us encouragement. So I wanted to leave a practice how we can actually help ourselves today is to actually, well, there's many things, but there's positive mantras. starting with I can do this, I will do this, and it doesn't need to be perfect. I'll be in the practice. And the other thing I do a lot of inner child work, because it's usually the child who's frightened, just like assessing and watching my little grandson, that he doesn't have the self-esteem built in yet to know that he could just get on that tractor and that he would be safe. It is something, that we need to develop over time. So I just really think it's so important for everybody to take some time to be curious with themselves, and as a adjunct to our last talk about the stories we tell ourselves, it really is important to really commit to that self-inquiry to help develop and have our belief. We need to change some of our beliefs and our stories, drop some of the story. And the other thing is, I think you mentioned last week or maybe one of our other shows, is to learn, to study. And now some people are in fear mode because they say, well, I can't be a dancer because I won't be able to pay the bills and I might not be successful at it. So what do? What we can do is take a dance class, like really explore and be very gentle, but start weaving it into our lives.
Robin,
Thoughts?
when I hear you go back to the idea of becoming a dancer, it makes me think that there are really two planes of purpose. There's what we see in this life, and some of it for a younger person might be to aspire to having a place in the world, in the living world right now. Be able to pay their lives, afford their lives, take care of themselves, and that's survival. And that's when you get to that dilemma: is being a dancer going to make enough money for me to afford my life? But then there's that other question, which is, okay, whether you are a dancer or not a dancer, whether you're a successful dancer or not a successful dancer, what are you alive to do beyond that? Is this whole experience and the challenges you face here for another reason? Not everyone wants to go there. That might be the more spiritual question. On the other hand, what I would say to that is, if one is going to contemplate it at least and consider it, it's almost a different plane of question, but it requires some of the same psychological components that you have addressed, which is conquering fear. And then with regard to the story, you talk about maybe reframing the story in the past. But here I would say forecast a different story, that my life has this incredible meaning and purpose. I assume that's what it is. I'm going to fill in the gap. I'm going to learn what that may be. And that's part of the self-awareness, the self-learning that you were referring to, I think applies there as well. So whatever state of being you are, whatever stage of life you may be in, I think that applies just the same.
Yeah. And then we're going to throw in the empathy and compassion for ourselves. So when when we get lost and we're driving somewhere, you can really see a lot of psychology on the road, when people aren't doing what other people think they need to be doing. And we'll call it road rage. And the tolerance of self and patience, we want to call in that will help bring us into this is a process. Now, there's one other thing which will also block one from their true purpose or just a purpose, is that somebody else does it for them. So what that might look like when we're younger, and a lot of, not a lot, could be that a parent has their own fear, and that is projected onto how it gets projected onto the child is they're going to do it for them. I don't know how many people out there, but I do know some moms that used to say they used to do the homework for their children, or they would do the projects. They spent all night doing the project for the child. So, and not to be negative, but we do want to look for some of these flaws that influenced us. So it's like going into a movie and watching the end of the movie and not staying, for the beginning, or maybe someone might watch the beginning and then say, oh, or reading a book and they want to get to the end, but they're not actually in the journey. And on a cellular level, we need to be in the practice, like we're moving forward and that we can actually, feel accomplished. So we do need that. So if we try to skip over it, sometimes if we move too fast, we can also get disrupted in our flow. So it really boils down to the emotion fear. And it starts very early. And you see some people that, follow their passion and they're on purpose in life. And what we look at those people is they've had many falls. And yet they had encouragement and support to pick themselves up and have, that essential ingredient. Now, we can't always get it from outside. However, there are people that inspire us, people that I know for me, when I was on my spiritual journey, I made a statement was to myself, I want to surround myself with, and I called it successful people to me, and people that, were doing things that I loved and aspired to, to learn and to say, yes, I can do this. Surround yourself. I think we talked about that before in our talks, how important it is to be around people who encourage and are positive that can influence us. So those are just a few things. What we need is self-esteem and courage. Courage is probably before self-esteem. Just courage to be willing to try new things. So that's sort of what my take is, how we get to move forward in our purpose, whatever that might be, a hobby. I know you've worked with people at the end of their lives, and they certainly weren't talking about, how much money they had. I don't know, you could maybe share more, but what I know most people regret is not trying, and having the courage to try different things. So I just thought today we'd just inspire, including ourselves, to think about, that you are the director of your life. And, when we get our power and get our power back, which is through some of the things that I just shared, that we could do it. And then we can move forward and flourish and grow, because we are human beings. We need to thrive. And, the primitive, we were hunters, when we got up in the morning, we had a purpose to survive and to hunt and to survive. And if we don't have each day that we wake up to be on purpose, depression, anxiety can set in. We spoke about anxiety is a state of being, which actually is that we don't have a forward movement action type of plan. So we really are designed to be on purpose.
Robin, I think that was really a great summary of the psychological aspects of purpose and how many different areas it touches upon, but how in the end, what I heard you say, and maybe as a final word today, is how important it is for us to embrace essentially our lives, live it with purpose, seeing how that itself is a purpose, and to get clear by not counting ourselves out in any way, being careful about the stories we tell ourselves, those that other people have told us, and surrounding ourselves with good people. And I would say, our community, Slow Medicine, is about finding good people and sharing our work with good people to try to add goodness to this world and to support humanity, all individuals and us collectively. And so thank you very much for tuning in. Again, we'll be here next Wednesday at the same time. And if you have any thoughts or questions, any suggestions for us, please write to us at slowmedicine.org is the website, and info@slowmedicine.org is the email address. And we'd love to hear from you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Robin, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay, bye.